I always believed that trust was the foundation of a marriage. I believed that if two people loved each other, truly and deeply, there would be no need for secrets, especially not the kind that could destroy someone's life. But I was wrong. It started on a Tuesday morning. Just an ordinary day. The kettle was whistling, sunlight was streaming through the kitchen window, and the usual stack of mail was waiting by the door. I picked it up without thinking, flipping through bills, flyers, and subscription cards, until I saw something that made my stomach tighten. A sleek white envelope, marked urgent. Final loan approval from a bank I didn't recognize. My name was on it, clear as day. At first, I thought it was a mistake. Some kind of promotional letter. But as I tore it open, the weight in my chest grew heavier. It wasn't an ad. It was confirmation. My application for a personal loan of $25,000 had been approved. Except, I never applied for a loan. I stared at the document, heart pounding, hands slightly trembling. My name, my address, even my phone number. But I knew I had nothing to do with this. I glanced over at the living room where my husband, Samir, was lounging on the couch, scrolling through his phone like it was just another peaceful morning. My heart rate picked up as I clutched the letter, walking slowly toward him. "Samir," I said, my voice calm but shaky. "Did you apply for a loan using my name?" He looked up, his eyebrows slightly furrowed.
What? What are you talking about?
I held out the letter.
This.
From a bank I've never used. It says I applied for a loan. He took it, scanned it for a moment, then laughed. Actually laughed.
Oh,
That's probably just junk. You know these banks send all kinds of fake pre-approvals to trick people. Just toss it out. But something about his reaction felt off. Too casual. Too dismissive. Like he'd rehearsed it. I didn't toss it out. Instead, after he left for work, I went into our shared home office and searched through our files. He usually handled all the paperwork, bills, taxes, bank accounts. I trusted him. Why wouldn't I? But as I opened folder after folder, my trust started to crack. There were account statements from banks I'd never used. Statements addressed to me, but with transactions I couldn't explain. I found copies of emails that looked like applications in my name. I sat there, stunned. The documents scattered around me like confetti from a celebration I wasn't invited to. I didn't want to believe it. But denial doesn't erase evidence.
He'd done something.
Something serious. And he was hiding it. That night, I tried to act normal. I served dinner, smiled, and made small talk. But inside, I was unraveling. Every time he looked at me, I wondered how he could lie so easily. How long had he been lying? I replayed every recent moment with him in my mind. The days he came home later than usual. The times he was oddly defensive about money. The way he suddenly insisted on handling all our finances. At bedtime, as he lay next to me, scrolling through his phone again, I asked quietly, "Have you ever taken money out in my name?" He didn't look at me. Of course not. Why would you ask that? I found more letters today. And documents in the office. Now he turned, his face instantly hardening. "You went through my stuff?" "It's not just your stuff." And I had to. "Something's wrong, Samir." There was a long pause. A cold, echoing silence. "You're overreacting," he said, rolling over. "You always do this." That word. Overreacting. He used it like a knife. But I wasn't overreacting. I was finally seeing the truth, and it scared me. I didn't sleep that night. My mind raced in circles, calculating what this meant. If he really took out loans in my name, my credit, my identity, my future, it was all at risk. What else had he done? Was this just the beginning? The next morning, I went to the bank listed on the approval letter. I showed my ID and asked about the loan. The woman behind the desk hesitated, then pulled up my profile. "Yes, ma'am. The funds were disbursed 2 weeks ago. It looks like the repayment plan starts next month."
My throat went dry.
Disbursed? Where were the funds sent? She hesitated again. "To a joint account under your name and a Mr. Samir Khan." I stood there in stunned silence. Joint account. My name. His signature. And I had no idea it even existed. I didn't authorize that, I whispered. She looked uncomfortable. You may need to speak with our fraud department. That word, fraud. It clung to me like a stain. By the time I got home, I was shaking. I had copies of everything. And my mind was finally catching up with my heart. Samir didn't just lie. He betrayed me. He used me, my name, my identity, for something I hadn't even begun to understand. When he got home that night, I was waiting. I went to the bank, I said, watching his face. They told me everything. His expression flickered.
Panic.
Then rage. Then nothing. Like a mask being adjusted. You shouldn't have done that, he said coldly. You don't understand. No, I snapped.
You don't understand.
I could go to jail for this. I could lose everything. You didn't even ask me. His silence was louder than a scream. That was the moment I knew. This wasn't a mistake.
It was a choice.
And now I had to make mine. Samir stood there, arms crossed, expression unreadable. I could feel the tension thick in the room, like a storm about to break. I did it for us, he finally said, voice low, almost too calm. You wouldn't have understood. You would have said no. My jaw clenched. You're right. I would have said no. Because forging my name, lying to me, and dragging me into your mess isn't love. It's manipulation.
He scoffed.
It's not like I spent it on something stupid. I invested it. Invested it? I echoed. Without telling me? Without even asking me? Whose money is it now, Samir? Mine? Yours? Ours? Or is my identity just a tool for your secret business ventures? He opened his mouth to answer, but I raised my hand. I was done listening to excuses. I called the bank. The account is under both our names. That means I'm liable too. Do you even understand what that means? If you can't pay it back, I'm on the hook. My credit, my job opportunities, even legal consequences, it all falls on me too. I had no choice, he snapped suddenly. I was drowning, all right? The bills were piling up. The freelance gigs slowed down. I couldn't tell you, because you'd freak out like you're doing now. My heart sank. The truth was leaking out like water from a cracked dam. He was in financial trouble, and instead of turning to me, he turned against me. You had every choice, Samir, I said, my voice shaking. You could have talked to me. You could have trusted me. But instead, you forged my signature, opened an account behind my back, and took out thousands of dollars. That's not a partnership. That's betrayal. He looked down at the floor, shame flickering in his eyes for the first time. But it wasn't enough. I'm calling the bank's fraud department tomorrow, I said firmly. And I'm reporting it. If I don't, I'm complicit. I won't go down for a crime I didn't commit. You're going to throw me under the bus? He asked, voice rising.
No.
You threw yourself under the bus the moment you decided I wasn't worth honesty. Silence filled the room again. The kind that screamed louder than any argument. That night, we slept in separate rooms. I didn't cry. I was far past that. My mind was already racing, calculating the steps ahead. How to untangle myself legally, how to protect my identity, how to reclaim my power. The next day, I met with the fraud department at the bank. I showed them the documents. I signed an affidavit declaring the loan was taken out without my knowledge or consent. They told me it was a serious matter. There would be an investigation. When I returned home, I found Samir pacing in the living room. You really reported me, he said. Do you realize what you've done? I protected myself, I replied calmly. I gave you my trust. You turned it into debt. He started to say something, but I cut him off. There's more. I checked my credit report. There are other accounts, credit cards, store financing, all in my name. His face went pale. You weren't just drowning, I said. You were dragging me under with you. Samir didn't respond. He just sat down on the couch, staring blankly ahead like he'd just realized the house was on fire and he was holding the match. That weekend, I packed a small suitcase and went to stay with my sister. I needed space.
Clarity.
A moment to breathe and hear my own thoughts again, without the sound of deception ringing in my ears. While I was away, I filed a police report. I froze my credit. I scheduled appointments with a lawyer and a financial advisor. I wasn't going to let his recklessness ruin the rest of my life. But something unexpected happened during that time. I started to feel free. It was strange, but being away from him, away from the lies and the gaslighting, felt like stepping into fresh air after being trapped in a smoky room. I hadn't realized how much I'd been suppressing my own instincts, how many times I'd silenced my gut just to keep the peace. I began writing everything down, every incident, every red flag I'd ignored, every sign I brushed off. And with each word, I felt stronger. I was rebuilding myself, brick by brick, truth by truth. When Samir called, I let it go to voicemail. When he texted, I didn't respond. I needed to hear my voice first before letting his back into my life. One afternoon, my sister sat next to me on the couch, holding my hand. "You always tried to be the strong one," she said gently. "But you don't have to carry his choices on your back." Her words hit deep, because she was right. For too long, I had worn his failures like they were mine. I had tried to fix everything, to smooth over cracks he kept making wider. But not anymore. I had a decision to make, one that would shape the rest of my life. And this time I was going to make it on my own terms. A few days later, I received a call from the bank investigator handling my fraud case. She sounded calm, but there was something in her tone that told me this was more serious than I imagined. "Ma'am," she began, "we've reviewed the documents, including signatures and transaction records. We have reason to believe this was part of a larger pattern." "A pattern?" I asked, heart skipping a beat. "Yes," she replied. "Your husband, Samir, has taken out loans and credit accounts under multiple aliases, all using variations of your name, some with slightly changed details. There's a history of this going back 2 years.
2 years?
I felt the world tilt. That meant this wasn't a desperate move in the heat of the moment. This wasn't about one mistake, one bad month, or even one hidden loan. This was premeditated, calculated, repeated. Are you saying he's been doing this for years?" I stammered.
Yes.
"We're compiling the evidence, and the case will be escalated to the Financial Crimes Division. There's also the possibility of criminal charges." My hand trembled as I hung up the call. He had built an entire web of lies around me, using my name, my identity, my trust, and I had been walking through that web blindly, unaware of how entangled I truly was. I immediately called my lawyer, who told me to begin compiling proof that I had no knowledge or involvement in these activities. Old emails, text messages, financial records showing my absence from the transactions. "You need to protect yourself," he said, "because if this gets worse, they might try to pull you down with him." I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the wall. Memories flickered in and out of my mind like broken film reels. The sudden vacations, he said, were covered by freelance payments. The luxury watch he claimed was a gift from a client. The time I saw a notice in the mail about a new account, and he told me it was junk mail. All the signs had been there. I just didn't want to see them. I had loved a man who used me like a mask. That night, Samir showed up at my sister's door. He looked disheveled, desperate. "I need to talk," he pleaded. I stepped outside, shutting the door behind me. "I know you talked to the bank," he said, "and I know what they told you, but it's not what you think. You've been doing this for years," I said, voice cold. "You used my name to build a financial house of cards, and now it's collapsing." "I was trying to save us," he insisted. "I was scared, okay? I lost my job over a year ago. I didn't want to tell you. I thought I could make it right before you found out. And instead, I snapped. You stole from me. You lied to me every day. You created debt in my name that I'll be cleaning up for years." "I didn't mean for it to go this far," he whispered. "But it did," I said. "You crossed the line from struggling partner to criminal. And now you want sympathy? You want forgiveness." He said nothing. Then I asked the question I had been too afraid to ask until now. "Was there someone else helping you?" His eyes darted. I knew that look. The look of someone whose secret was moments away from escaping. "I got advice from a guy I met online," he admitted slowly. "He runs a forum. Teaches people how to leverage credit, how to make clean money without having to work dead-end jobs. I stared at him in disbelief. You took financial advice from an internet scammer? I thought he knew what he was doing, Samir said. He said people do this all the time. Use credit, rebuild, pay it off, and start fresh. But you didn't pay it off, did you? I said, voice shaking. You just kept piling more and more, hoping it'd somehow vanish. He looked away. I realized then I had been married to a man chasing fantasy. A man so afraid of failure, he turned to deception instead of humility. I don't know you, I said. I'm still me, he whispered. The same man who loved you. No, I replied, tears forming in my eyes. The man I loved wouldn't have erased me to build himself up. He stepped closer, but I backed away. Don't, I said firmly. You don't get to make this about love. Love requires honesty, sacrifice,
Partnership. You chose secrets.
you chose shortcuts, and now you have to live with the consequences. For a long moment he stood still. Then he turned and walked away. As I watched him disappear down the street, I felt something shift inside me. It wasn't just heartbreak. It was awakening. I hadn't just been betrayed by a partner. I had been manipulated by someone who wore love like armor while stabbing me in the back. There was no going back from this. I returned inside and closed the door behind me. My sister looked up, worry etched into her face. What did he say? She asked. I sank into the couch beside her. He said he loved me, I replied. And then, after a pause, I added, but now I know, real love doesn't leave scars like this. I thought that would be the end. That walking away from him, from the wreckage of our marriage, would close the door on the chaos. But I was wrong. The next morning, I received a letter from the collections agency. Not just one account in default, 4. All maxed out. All linked to the fraudulent credit Samir had opened under my name. And the worst part? One of them was threatening legal action if immediate payment wasn't made. I felt the panic rise in my chest like a tidal wave. I had just started to breathe again, just started thinking clearly, and now I was being dragged back under. I called my lawyer in a frenzy. He listened carefully, then said something that made my blood freeze. You may have to testify. Testify. I repeated, my voice barely audible. Yes, he said. If this goes to court, and it will if you're pursuing fraud protection and they go after Samir criminally, you'll need to give a full statement. Under oath. The thought of standing in a courtroom, recounting my husband's betrayal in front of strangers, terrified me. But what scared me more was the idea of staying silent, of letting him get away with it. I agreed. That afternoon, I sat down and began writing every detail, every transaction I hadn't recognized, every lie he told, every red flag I ignored. It felt like surgery without anesthesia, painful but necessary. Then came the confrontation that would change everything. Later that evening, I received a text from Samir.
Please.
Just meet me one more time. I want to say what I couldn't before. Against my better judgment, and against my sister's warning, I agreed to meet him. Not alone, not somewhere private. I chose a small, well-lit cafe halfway between my place and where he was staying. He arrived with eyes hollowed by sleepless nights. His face was thinner, older. But I didn't feel pity anymore. I felt resolve. I know what you've been telling people, he began. That I'm some kind of monster. But you don't understand. I didn't have a choice. You always had a choice, I interrupted, my voice steady. And you chose this. I was drowning, he hissed. I tried everything. Side gigs, odd jobs, crypto, trading, even flipping electronics. Nothing worked. I didn't want you to know I had failed. I couldn't live with that. But you could live with lying to me every day. I snapped. You could live with putting my future, my name, my credit, everything I built at risk? He slammed his fist on the table, drawing glances from nearby customers. I built that life with you, he shouted. Don't act like you did it alone. I leaned in, my voice ice cold. And I didn't destroy it. He sank back, breathing heavily. I just want another chance, he said, quieter now. I'll pay it all back. I'll fix it. You think this is just about money? I asked. You think you can patch over this like it's a broken pipe? It's not like I cheated on you, he muttered. That was the moment I saw the full scope of his delusion. He genuinely believed what he did wasn't that bad. He thought lies, fraud, manipulation, they could be forgiven, so long as they weren't infidelity. You betrayed my trust, I said. You stole my name, my peace of mind, my sense of safety. Do you even understand what that means? He stared at me blankly. No, I continued. You don't. Because if you did, you wouldn't be sitting here asking for forgiveness. You'd be sitting in a courtroom, ready to take responsibility. The silence between us stretched. Then I pulled out the printed document from my bag. This is a list of everything tied to me, I said, sliding it across the table. Accounts, debt, open loans. I want your signature confirming that you opened these without my knowledge or consent. He blinked. Are you serious? Very, I replied. You sign this, and I'll submit it to the bank and the police. It's your one chance to show that, somewhere deep down, you do have a shred of decency left. He looked down at the paper, then back at me. If I sign this, it's over? It was already over the moment you chose to hide this, I said. But this is your last chance to own it.
He took the pen.
For a long moment, his hand hovered. Then, in slow, defeated strokes, he signed. My heart ached watching it happen, but it also felt like a final thread snapping free. The illusion was gone. The man I had once trusted was no more. All that was left was the truth. I stood up. Goodbye, Samir. He didn't look at me as I walked out. And I didn't look back. It's been 8 months since I walked out of that cafe with Samir's signature in my bag and the last remnants of our life together behind me. At first, I thought the worst part would be the legal process, telling my story to banks, debt collectors, and eventually in court. But strangely, that part brought me closure. There was something empowering about speaking the truth out loud, with no more fear or hesitation. Samir was charged with identity theft and fraud. He pled guilty, likely under pressure from the evidence I handed over. He avoided jail time with a plea deal but was ordered to pay restitution. I doubt I'll ever see a single rupee of it. But it's not about the money anymore. I've been rebuilding my life from the ground up, fixing my credit, going through endless phone calls and paperwork, slowly piecing together the reputation and stability he tried to shatter.
It's exhausting.
Some days, I feel like a shell of who I used to be. But other days, I feel strong. I feel awake, like I finally see the world and myself for what we truly are. There were moments I doubted myself, wondered if I had overreacted, if maybe, somehow, I had played a role in all of this. But those thoughts don't last long. Not anymore. Because the truth is, I kept the lights on. I fed us. I supported us when the walls were closing in. And I never once betrayed him. I just believed in him too long. And now I believe in me. The most surprising part of the aftermath has been people's reactions. Some were supportive, relieved that I got out, that I stood up for myself. Others not so much. He's your husband, nah? Maybe you should have helped him instead of turning him in. You could have kept it private. Why go to the police? You're so brave, but maybe a little cold. Everyone has an opinion when it's not their name on the loan. But I don't answer to them. I answer to the girl who stared at her phone in disbelief, who stood shaking in front of a bank manager, who looked into her husband's eyes and saw a stranger. I protect her now. That woman matters more than their judgments. Just last week, I ran into someone from Samir's circle, a mutual acquaintance who hadn't heard my side. He was surprised to see me smiling, holding my head high. I thought you'd be shattered after all that, he said. I looked him dead in the eyes and said, I was. But I rebuilt myself from the pieces. He looked at me as if I'd spoken in a foreign language. And in a way, I had. People like him only understand one type of woman, the quiet kind. The kind who suffers silently and forgives loudly. That's not me anymore. And then, just when I thought I had reached the end of this dark chapter, it happened. Last night, I got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name, written in Samir's handwriting. I opened it slowly, a knot forming in my throat. Inside, a single sheet of paper. No apologies. No explanations. Just 6 words, written in neat, deliberate strokes. You were never supposed to know. I stared at it for a long time. No date. No signature. Just that chilling sentence. I don't know what he meant. Was it a confession? A regret? A threat? Part of me wanted to crumble, curl up in fear and uncertainty. But another part of me, stronger now, louder, laughed. Because here's what Samir doesn't understand. Even now. I was supposed to know. I was supposed to wake up. To learn the truth. To burn the illusion to the ground and walk through the ashes with my head held high. His words weren't a threat. They were a gift. Proof that he never saw me clearly. That he thought I was weak, naive, easily manipulated. But I'm not. I'm a woman who faced betrayal and came out sharper. I'm the kind of woman who tells her story so others know they're not alone. I'm the kind of woman who doesn't keep quiet anymore. So here I am, telling you this. If someone uses love to disguise control, if they twist your trust into a tool, if they leave you questioning your reality, you are worthy of truth. You are allowed to choose yourself. And if someone tries to silence you with shame, with guilt, with fear, remember me. Remember the girl who got a letter meant to scare her and turned it into a victory. Because the final twist isn't in his story. It's in mine.